Hello, thanks for joining us and welcome to the 6th IQ Focus live stream. Today we're delving into the booking agency world with 4 total legends from the business, and I'm very excited about the next hour of conversation. From the ongoing crisis of coronavirus to last week's Blackout Tuesday campaign and diversity in the sector, there's a lot to talk about. My name's Greg Parmley. I'm not an agent, but I will be hosting the session today, and this is a fully interactive discussion. So if you have a question or a comment, please do put them in the respective comment box on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching, and we'll get to them. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to today's guests. Maria, perhaps you'd like to go first. Give us a quick introduction. Tell us about your last 100 days and where you are at the moment.
Hello, I'm Maria May. I'm a global music agent at CAA, Creative Artists Agency. Well, where do you begin with the last 100 days? It's been a roller coaster, hasn't it? From the initial feelings of shock and a despair sort of creeping in to watching a whole summer be wiped to zero. It's been quite an interesting time, but we're certainly starting to see some more positive things starting to come in now. So I'm positive and hopeful about the future.
Fantastic. Jules, up next, tell us about your last 3 months and where you are at the moment.
Yeah, so I am part of the music leadership team at UTA here in London. The last 3 months have been have been interesting. I think for me they've been both challenging and fulfilling. And I'll start with really mentioning the kind of challenge of working from home and really homeschooling, something that we've all, I think, on the panel experienced as managing family, managing work, managing distractions throughout the day, and really getting better at it as the time and as the weeks have gone by. And I've found myself having tough weeks for whatever reason. You're finding it hard focusing. Maybe the kids are feeling more anxious and you're having to spend more time with them. But I think the major take home has been that during this period is not to put too much pressure both on the family and too much pressure on the work side, and sort of do as much as we can and do the best we can considering the constraints and the circumstances. And then the other take home has been that throughout the period we've been the best thing that we've been able to do, especially at the beginning and in the really uncertain, anxious weeks, has been to really check in with everyone around us, whether it's colleagues that we're not close to, or managers or artists, or even competitors, making sure that, and promoters, making sure that everyone's okay. And so I mean, despite the anxiety, a lot of good has come out of that.
Thanks very much. Angus, over to you. Give us a quick update on the last couple of months.
I'm living in up and down like all of us, but generally I think it's fair to say there's been an amazing sort of spirit of cooperation amongst the agents, promoters, venues, managers, artists. I feel that there are positives that we can take from this bizarre year, and looking forward to talking about it with everyone.
Thanks very much. And Tom, over to you.
So I was muted then. Classic. I'm Tom. I am a partner at Paradigm Ex-Coder. I've had about as disastrous last 100 days as the rest of you. 2 young children, another one just arrived a week and a half ago. No sleep, everything imploding. But I've sort of enjoyed it. I think that it's made me look at everything in a different way. My family, my job. I've got fat. That's not ideal. But I've come to some conclusions about things, as I'm sure everyone has, and I really hope that we don't go back to how we were before. Having said that, I never realized how simple my life was before, and I cannot wait to be back in a venue watching a band play music. And I miss the pub. I really miss the pub.
Pub gardens and a good gig.
Any pub, anything, pub.
Well, I mean, just to follow up on that. So what's changed? What's the thing that's changed the most for you in the last 3 months? Then, would you say?
Being forced to spend time with my children. and realizing that I've got two wonderful boys. An absolute rebalance in how I see other people's jobs, and the stress and anxiety of ours is, I think we all talk up the pressure on us, but you realize the pressure, everyday pressure other people have, especially, I can't even imagine single parents. So I think it's just put perspective on again, but it's also made me want to look at the business we do, especially the European business, pat ourselves on the back for having generally much more sensible business, and therefore be better set up to get back to where we were than maybe the US. I am as frustrated as everyone is with the British government, and I have trouble not getting very, very angry about this stuff. But I think there are positives. I think I hate that new normal phase because I want the old normal, but I think we'll do stuff better, and we will have all learned a lot from it, for sure.
Okay, thanks. Jules, from your point of view, I mean, what's been the most kind of challenging thing that you faced, within your role and most in the sort of recent period, would you say?
I think we've had many different challenges. I think that at the beginning we've had different phases throughout the last 100 days, and at the beginning it was really to try and manage our own expectations, where obviously we could see this coming. From pre 100 days, Asia was affected. We could see how how the business was disrupted there, but never really thought at the beginning that we would be so affected. And when reality sunk in and we went into lockdown, I remember thinking at the beginning, okay, well the next couple of months are going to be affected, and or 3 months, and then hopefully our summer will be okay. So we were thinking, okay, well this is most likely till the end of June, and then June, July will be okay, and then very quickly it just started getting into the spiral of descending into sort of worse news and general negativity, and thinking, well, when is this going to stop? At one point I think we're thinking, okay, well there's major touring or touring at a sort of 3,000 plus or 5,000 plus level, not going to resume really until autumn of 2021. And then is this going to be pushed into even 2022, and how does everyone survive until then? So I think that was a challenge in itself, to essentially to manage kind of anxious thoughts. You've got to sort of plan for the worst, and hope that the final outcome is actually one that you've catered for, and that's a positive one compared to what you've been expecting. So as Maria pointed out, the last few weeks have been more positive. We've started seeing lockdown rules ease up. We've started seeing live, the prospect of live returning to some countries, be it in social distancing, context of social distancing. We've started seeing Japan saying that from August onwards, should things go well, when they ease lockdown in July, that we might resume, we might return to full capacity, and no restrictions on live events. Some festivals happening, sort of seeing good news, as Tom pointed out, offline earlier, on festivals selling out in advance, and I think that that's it feels like we're sort of climbing back up. The only sort of uncertainty looming is really this kind of spike, the second wave, or the series of waves that may come back, and that's really what we're all waiting to see. How deep those are going to be. I think people within the NHS are saying it's a question of sort of when as opposed to if. But if we can get through this next kind of hurdle, I think we'll be we'll know how 2021 is going to shape up.
Thank you. Angus, are you looking at things in a similar way? Jules is sort of talking about us maybe having sort of turned a bit of a corner in terms of some markets opening back up and a bit of a glimmer of light on the horizon. Are you feeling similarly to that?
Yeah, I think that the challenge is definitely not knowing when we can expect to get things going again. And obviously that, there are different messages coming from different countries, and different governments seem to have a better grip on communicating what some sort of exit strategy might be from the lockdown measures. And I think I do think that in this next period of transition that there's going to be, that we should be open to all working together with our artists and venues, and to maximize the potential of what we can do. I've certainly seen, we were all talking about how in the last few days there's been a bit more positivity. There's certainly been more offers coming in, even if they are for gigs in settings that we're not normally used to. There's certainly lots of kind of creative ideas for drive-in shows and using filming in venues that seems to be happening more and more at the moment. So I think as part of the process of getting back to a capacity, hopefully we'll start to see more of those opportunities, and I'm trying to kind of make the most of those in this next little window. But
yeah, thanks. My favorite idea so far is the biking concert, where you take your bike, and it's because they're about 2 meters wide, or 2 meters long, and you use them to socially distance from the person next to you, which I thought was a pretty cool idea. Maria, for you, like what does the path to recovery look like? How do you see the next few months playing out?
I get my crystal ball out. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't really, talking about the UK is depressing, isn't it? When you talk about what's been going on in Europe, and certainly we're all finding out now that we're not being told how well the Balkans and countries in Eastern Europe have done fighting corona, and how they've managed to contain it through full lockdown, not letting people in and out of the country, and people being inside their houses for 24 hours a day. And obviously we saw the results of that in Italy and Spain as well. I mean, it took a while, but we're certainly seeing across Europe, there's been, obviously I do a lot of DJs, so there were a lot of these drive-in shows, drive-through shows, sorry, I keep calling them that, happening in Germany, and a lot of my DJs got to headline them, and promoters got to promote their brand to an audience that couldn't go to a festival, and the DJs got to play in front of an audience, which was pretty cool, and they got paid for working. We're starting to see like a lot of this virtual stuff coming in. I didn't know whether you wanted to mention that yet. We're starting to see like a lot of offers for live streaming, or pre-recorded sets then being put into a virtual universe, or all of these kind of, like, the day doesn't go by when there isn't something like that coming in. I mean, I wanted to talk about, obviously, same as Tom, adjusting to working at home, having been used to being part of a massive team, has been quite interesting, and managing teenagers at home. The biggest difference for me has been email. I mean, my whole business model was changed. I used to be a slave to email, and now I'm literally spending my whole day talking to people, which seems really old school, but it's been amazing, and we've been doing webinars and like this, and we've been across the whole, CAA is a great company. We're doing lots of company training, corporate training, executive training. We've also been talking to all of our managers and clients on video. I think before, a lot of people just didn't want to do this. They want to do face to face, and now we've all got used to like talking all the time. And I actually feel like on a human level, it's been amazing for all of us. And I think it's good to recognize that we've become slightly more, it's very easy to hide behind email, isn't it? But when you're face to face with someone and you're talking to them, you realize you get a lot more out of it.
I think it's absolutely true. I mean, even from a London perspective, just the skies being kind of clearer and the air is clearer, and life has definitely slowed down for a lot of people. And I think it's given a lot of people just time to reflect and pause a little bit, whether they wanted to or not, really. Tom, from your point of view, how do you see the next few months playing out? With your sort of paradigm out on that. How are you guys seeing that things might progress? And you know, do you see there's a point at which we're going to really start to emerge as an industry?
I think I just want to. I've seen a little comment here from Kira. We are definitely going to talk about everything that's happened with Black Lives Matter over the last week. It would be ridiculous, completely inappropriate, and totally awful for us not to do so. But we're just starting at this COVID point, so I'm sure we're going to get there, and it's going to be a massive focus of this discussion. To go back to Greg's question, look, as a partner, I think the hardest thing I've dealt with and continue to deal with is the uncertainty. So you can talk about the drive-ins, the bike-ins, the streaming, all of that. But we don't have a proper business, all of us, until we can tour cross countries with kit and go and play big festivals. That is how our business is built. And it's what we're trying to get back to. So I think that there is some really worthy things, and I think you'll see a shift where streaming on its own, we can. I tell you what, let me start again. I think one of the really good bits that's happened as an agent, and there's someone on the comments asking if the role of the agent is obsolete now. Luckily, I don't think it is. The majors have really sort of seen that they cannot get traction with an artist without shows. So, you know, I've spent 20 years telling people that, but I didn't actually know if it was true. And now we really do know it's true. So gigs, and I expect most people sat on here are involved in gigs, are an absolutely integral part of the music food chain. And we know that. So I feel more valuable than I've ever felt before, but with this uncertainty and that, how do I sustain my business? How do I keep 120 people employed? How on earth is this going to play out? And we have to be reactive. What we're doing is we're taking educated guesses, and we're all reading essentially the same headlines as everyone else. You know, you might get a little whisper from here or there, but the reason that the government haven't told us anything in the UK is because they don't know. And as soon as they do know or have made a decision, they will tell us. And all we're having to do is forecast a bit. And I said before that this discussion started, that it's been proper bonkers this last few months. If you think, I don't know, I think particularly me and Alex were quite ahead of this in terms of we could see the gravitas. But I think in February, I was suddenly going, right, I need 20 more laptops because we're going to be working from home. And some people in the office were like, you're mad, it's flu. And we went from that to being like, do you think Glastonbury's going to wobble? To then getting to the point where is Glastonbury 2021 going to happen 4 weeks later? And the speed with which this has hit us as an industry, and of course the globe and everything else, is absolutely unprecedented. And I think the bit that scares me, and as always the Americans lead the way, often in a bad way, is that the rescheduling, the re-announcement is going to lead to fatigue from managers, from artists, from promoters, but most importantly from punters. And I think that there needs to be some sensibleness about announcing when you know that things can happen. And we also have to desperately protect everyone in this ecosystem and keep them going, because I think I've been doing this for 20 years. There's people on this panel that have been doing it for much longer, that have more experience. But I've never been in a situation where I didn't know where I could find an offer for a 500 cap venue in Coventry for or something. And we're definitely going to come out and see a completely different thing. So at the moment, we need to protect people. We need to try and make collective, sensible decisions. We need to find a way of engaging the fans, because we know there's demand, and we can see that from some of the sales that we're already seeing. But we need to do it in a way that is respectful and safe and neat and tidy and not partisan. You know, like, I feel like over here we're good. Generally, I think we're good people, and we work together better than maybe in some other countries as agents. And I hope that's just extended even more. You know, my wife sort of half gets it, but Maria is going to get it an awful lot more. And so it's nice to talk to other people that really understand the uncertainty and the fear factor and the complexity of it. And I think the same with promoters. And I'm going to shut up in a minute, but I would just add to what Maria said. I find myself, I've got a nanny back, which is brilliant. and I give myself a little hour's walk in the afternoon, and I find myself phoning promoter mates now and going, how are you? I'm not really calling you for any reason. And we might end up going, what you're hearing, but I'm genuinely like, how is things going? Because you realize, I've always been very skeptical, are your work colleagues your mates or not? But you realize these relationships have gone on for a long time. And when the shit hits the fan, I don't know if I can swear, but when the shit hits the fan, you want to talk to those people, don't you? And it's like, it is a bit of a family thing. I feel it's more of a family thing than I ever have felt in 20 years.
Completely agree, especially in terms of how the industries come together. I mean, it's sort of united by a common cause, right? I mean, we've never, collectively, the live music industry's never faced something this significant, and everybody is in the same boat. Maria, is that something that, I mean, are you feeling that sort of same sense of camaraderie as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and actually we need to collaborate more. At the moment, nobody is really lobbying our government on a lot. I mean, I know that people are, but, is testing a way to start allowing licenses for festivals to go forward? Could that be an answer? We know that last week, Melvin suggested that, we should have mandatory testing in order to enter an event or whatever. Is that a solution to get our business going? And should we be lobbying for this? And certainly in Europe, we need the promoters need to work together to lobby the European Union for something so that we can start moving forward. In terms of getting to know people that I've worked with for 20 years, obviously I thought I knew them well, but actually having the time to have long conversations with them about everything has been really amazing. And also recognizing, I work at a big agency. There's a lot of boutique agencies out there that are really struggling right now. And we do need to support people across the board in our industry so that we, that they have a vital role, and we need to support all the people that are struggling, and I hope that the governments do as well. So I do feel there is a massive sense of camaraderie, that everyone has been brought back down to the same base level of, facing a zero financial year and everyone being on lockdown. And I think, again, I keep saying this human level, but I really genuinely do feel that on a human level, it's been really good for all of us as an industry. We've become so reliant on this festival model. Every summer, it's like banging it out, like everybody working all the time. It's like, this has been a really good moment for us to look at our business and work out, how can we sustain ourselves, and how we can rebuild ourselves, but also, really look at, how we used to work and how we did it, and how we can protect ourselves from something like this in the future as well.
Angus, from your point of view, how do you think, or what do you think that you'll do differently, or 13 will do differently once we're through this period? I mean, how can you see things changing on your side?
Well, I do believe we will get through this period and get back to a sort of resuming a more, much more sort of normal pattern of bookings, even if next year will look very, very different. I mean, we want to be, open-minded as to, like, everyone here, as to how we can best support our managers and artists in this time. And I suppose at some of the initiatives that are being taken now will come with us. I mean, I know from the folks at Dice that, there's a huge amount of sort of streaming going on at lots and lots of different levels. I think we're going to see over the next few months improved production values, and people are going to be offering opportunities for artists to perform and, perhaps monetize in a meaningful way some of those performances. We were involved with a couple of acts that were playing at Alexandra Palace this week for some streaming a streaming event that the wireless people are pulling together, and the production values are incredible there. And I think there's going to be more more opportunities for people in the short term to to record their performances in venues that they may not usually get access to. And perhaps moving forwards, that'll be something that we'll all be able to sort of learn from and use those skills in the future. But I do believe that the sort of focus for us at the moment is just trying to best navigate for all of our clients when they can restart their touring patterns. And of course, that's the question that's so unknown. But I'm hopeful that with all of the conversations that are happening and the initiatives that people are putting forward, that we'll get to a place where quite soon we can get clearer plans from the government, and then we can make a plan to kind of move forward, get shows going, and if we have to react again, then we'll have to do that. But I'm sure that people will be much more sensitive to the different measures in terms of hygiene that we can apply to shows, and hopefully we'll be able to manage any flare-ups in the future much more effectively and quickly.
Thanks. Just on the topic of live streaming, Morgan's put a question in the comments here. He says, panel question, has the role of a booking agent in the COVID-19 life become obsolete or just temporarily irrelevant? With shows streamed from home, eliminate the need for agents, digital shows produced via a label, So, Maria.
Absolutely not. I think as agents, we all need to be across this massively. If you look at the kind of deals that are being offered by certain entities at the moment, where there are, you're getting a royalty for streaming of live performance, obviously they're paying the record company first to the various collection body. This is something, in my opinion, that is going to become standard across like all festivals in the future. If people want to do it, or if the artists want to, join in with it, nothing will ever replace a live music experience ever. And the interaction with the audience or being at the show. But the fact is, most of the festivals that are successful, people can't buy a ticket for them. They sell out so quickly. So there's going to be this demand for people to want to sort of engage with that. And if a lot of the festivals, if it looks like it, are starting some kind of way for you to view the festival as a pay-per-view, and us agents are doing those deals alongside the performance fees, I absolutely don't think that the role of the agent is obsolete at the moment at all.
I completely agree with that. I think what's really happened for us in the last few weeks is we've become, and I mean those that have taken, been keenest to find expertise in the live stream space and learn, as much as we can about it, which is then allowed us to go to our clients and, tell them, okay, well, here are the pros and cons of all these different ticketing partners for live streams. Here are the different broadcast platforms that you can use. Here are the ones that can are best for geofencing. Here are the ones that will ensure that your live stream is can't be hacked, is password protected. Here are the different sort of production options to actually. So we've gone as far as looking at production for live streams, in outdoor locations and special locations, and I think for what we've done so in a way that isn't sort of like trying to essentially monetize at all costs. I think we've set up brilliant live stream situations for artists that haven't involved monetization. We've set up live stream options that have been integrated into album pre-sale bundles as well, and these are essentially sort of services and value and expertise that we just want to bring our clients. And I think more and more, something that's really resonated with me throughout this period is the idea of our role as advisors, our role as consultants, our roles as sort of having expertise in the live space in general, if that involves live streaming, and really providing a service and expertise in lots of different areas, which I think gives us really a reason to exist more so than ever, as opposed to a situation where we're simply booking tours and taking commission for booking tours. So I think that dimension has been is absolutely key and has been a big part of the last few weeks. But it's really forced us also to innovate and to think force ourselves to really think creatively, what are the things what can we learn here? And, we have the resources, we have the time, and the capacity to be, to be learning about, virtual worlds, about, augmented reality, about some of the things that will become sort of mass, consumption, I predict in 4 or 5 years. So I think a very rich time from that, from that point of view. If I can use this term, considering also, I think that's the, the topic that's coming up, the emotion and anguish that we faced in the last couple of weeks.
Thanks, Jules. Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely wanted to have, get into the, last week's Blackout Tuesday campaign and the question of diversity in the industry. It's actually, I think, with in 2 weeks' time, we have an IQ focus session specifically on diversity in the live music. What are your thoughts? I mean, obviously, I think everyone's found the last couple of weeks to be, a very difficult conversation, a very worthy and relevant conversation. Maria, where do you feel we are as an industry, and also, I guess, because we're talking today about booking agencies specifically, how would you say the agency market is doing as well? The agency sector is doing.
I mean, it depends on the agency, doesn't it? I mean, CAA are very publicly out there at the moment trying to address these issues. We've just appointed a member to the board, and we are, actively working very, very hard to address it. We spent a long time with gender parity over the 8 years since I started, and I think we pretty much got to where we wanted to with that by 2020. And, we've been looking at these issues across the board: how we recruit, how we employ, how we bring people up, how we create departments, how we focus, and how we, bring light to these issues. We have a really strong Amplify group which are doing, conferences, and, we're really focusing on this as a company. And last week was incredible. At first, I was really unsure about, let's take a day to sort of reflect, but I did spend the day reading and watching films and being utterly shocked by some of the stuff that I saw, and actually learning even more again. And I think it was actually a great moment for a creative industry to actually step back for a second and encourage everybody to just take a moment and take stock and realize how much work there is to do in this area.
Tom, from your point of view, with at Paradigm, what are you guys doing at the moment, and how was last week for you?
Well, I think I'd take a slightly different tack from Maria, because I think one of the great things that's come out of this for me is my wife is a writer, very involved in this stuff, and it's we've had a lot of late nights with a little baby talking about it, and it feels good to be able to say, I don't get it, and we're a bit shit. And I think that actually I don't agree with Maria. I'm not going to go along the company thing. I think agencies throughout the UK are terrible at this, and have got to do much better, and have got to find a way of doing much better. That includes my company, but I actually think it includes everyone. There just isn't the representation there, and we have to look at why. And I think this gives us an opportunity to look at ourselves, challenge ourselves, have difficult conversations, ignore existing hierarchies and draw from all different experiences, and go and consult with people who have a better understanding of it. So, I mean, I can tell you what we're doing, but I sort of don't want to, because I think what we need is some tangible results to come from this. And I think one of the most startling bits about last week was the brands, big, from L'Oreal and the Monroe one to Dice had some issues. These brands just sweeping in, putting a black square on, coming up with a sentence, saying we're going to have a think, and then getting called out on it. And as they should, and as we should when we've made mistakes in the past. But I don't think just because people have made a mistake in the past doesn't mean that they can't proactively try and change it. But I hated the sort of insta moment of the whole thing. I thought it sort of summed up where we were. And so I'm not going to use this platform to tell you what we're doing at Paradigm. I want to come back to you in a year's time and show you what we've achieved. But it might not be a paradigm one. You know, I had a call from another agent this morning from another company, and he's got a brilliant idea. And I know he's going to call Emma, and then he was going to call Lucy. And like, it's a good time for us to go, we've been really, 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 really rubbish at this, and we better do something about it. It's about time. We need to do it. It will be for sorry to go back to our terrible government over here, but you cannot help but look at it and think there's 4 or 5 people making all those decisions at the moment, and none of them are women. And if there was a woman involved, the decisions would just be better, right? We know that. We've all experienced that. We've all experienced that in meetings. If you put 20 men around a table, they act in a particular way. You actually only need 1 woman there, and they behave better, because this old school ingrained rubbishness of testosterone and male uselessness just gets dissipated when you have a authoritative, calm woman in the picture. And I think the same is reflected when you have people from more varied backgrounds with varied experiences. And you know, I look after loads of black artists, and it's been sort of a big part of my career. But I've got a ton of work to do as a partner in a company to address this, and I don't think we should be shy about acknowledging our rubbishness.
Thank you. Jules, would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with the the view that we've not done enough in previous years. We've not realized that we haven't done enough. I think that there's a risk that words I used earlier, but the emotion and the severity of the last few weeks leads to kind of a rushed response, a response that isn't genuine. Tom brought that up. Is how can we be making deep, significant, long-lasting change within our businesses, within the industry as a whole, and how can we do it in a real way? How can we make sure that the emotion of the last 2 weeks and and the responses as a result of it, saying yes, we will change, yes, we will do whatever we can to be more diverse, to allow potential future executives of various backgrounds, various ethnicities to join our companies, and what can we do this in a genuine, long-lasting way? And as Tom pointed out as well, I think that having this conversation, this debate, 6 months from now, having this debate a year from now, like what have we achieved? How have things changed? How how are we more diverse? What are we what did we do to support causes and organizations fighting against racism and for social justice? So I think we're going to be scrutinized for how absolutely we are at the moment. We're admitting that there's so much more that we can do, and absolutely scrutinized for how well we've done in the coming weeks. It's I mean, I know we'll be announcing a series of measures, not things that I really want to sort of bring up right now. And as Tom said, I think yes, focusing on the measures, and what all I'll say is what we did on Blackout Tuesday, and some of the conversations and some of the dialogue and the open forum that we had internally was, for me, real eye opener and incredibly moving. I think that the pace at which the sort of from this was Thursday 2 weeks ago. This happened, the events and George Floyd happened in the US on a Thursday. I think by Saturday, Sunday, we kind of realized how deep and impactful the event was going to be. And then we had on the Monday, we had a global open forum with all kind of agents and assistants, and seeing the emotion that sort of came out of that, both from I guess from colleagues of all of all backgrounds and ethnicities was just incredibly moving. So I think the one thing I'll say is that the honesty and the dialogue thus far, I think, is the best that we've done. There's so much more to achieve, and it's for us to prove ourselves from here.
Thank you. I mean, just kind of going back to the kind of conversation about next year and the kind of recovery process that we're all working towards and hoping for as soon as possible. Do you guys feel that the nature of the deals between agents and promoters, agents and festivals, is going to change? I mean, are you seeing things kind of being done differently already?
I don't mind jumping in.
Go for it.
I think for me, it's about sensible business. I think that I can't remember what was before everyone else was online and what wasn't, but we were saying earlier that I've talked for a long time that I think the business was maxed, right? And there was going to be an adjustment somewhere. What no one predicted was a global pandemic to, sweep the earth and untold death, horrific. And what we've got to get back to is sensible business and a ecosystem. I know people are using the word at the moment, but I think it's a really good word because you need everyone to win. And I think that for a while, some people have looked at this business about them trying to win. You need everyone to win. And it's possible for everyone to win. And I think everyone used to win a bit more than they have done the last little while. America, the deals were so severe. The level of guarantee, the percentage breaks, the conversations about ancillaries. And I feel like we've always done more sensible business. And so our adjustment to help everyone get through this is going to be much less severe than in America. But I think there is a need for an adjustment because in 2021, we all desperately need a super successful summer. We need everyone to make money. We need people to survive. We need people to get their jobs back. We need punters to have a wonderful experience, and we need music to reconnect and be what it should be, and it has always been in these difficult times, is the soundtrack for how we emerge. The positive glimmer tends to come from music, and that's why everyone here does the job that we do. So I think that there is just sensible business. I hope that no one uses what is a really difficult period to their own advantage, and we simply sort of band together and we get through, and we can all get back to being total idiots in 2022. And I'm down with that. But for now, can we be cool and calm and collected and look after each other and look after venues and look after promoters and look after agents and look after managers and look after bands? I've never felt so loved as the last 12 weeks, especially when it all kicked off. Like, I get it. We're agents. We're horrible bastards. But we're actually not. I'm definitely not. And I got loads of calls from people saying, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I am." But it was sort of, struck a chord, didn't it? And I think it was lovely to see. But we all need each other. Very simple.
Yeah, great comment. Angus, from your point of view, I mean, are you kind of feeling the same? How are you feeling about next year and beyond? Are we going to be nicer to each other moving forwards?
Yeah, I think there's like, Tom says, a very good spirit of cooperation, generally speaking, between all parts of the business, particularly the promoters and the agents, and a willingness to, get stuff done. I think we all need to work very closely to make sure we know clearly on what basis we're confirming events, and that, everyone understands their commitments and obligations. But there's an appetite amongst the managers and agents and promoters to work it all out. So I 100% agree that it's important that the events that happen next year happen well. We all support them, and I do believe we work together, we'll be able to achieve that. Yeah.
Good stuff. I've got actually a question from Kim Bloom that I wanted to bring in here. She says, If we have a festival summer in 2021 with moving acts from this year to next, plus possibly every single act wanting to tour, how do you manage those expectations with your clients? Maria, maybe you wanted to, I'm going to nominate you for this one.
Okay. It's going to be hard, isn't it? I mean, I've moved most of my headliners immediately into next summer, and, you know, and then they're sort of, you know, it's tough because obviously with me, with all the more electronic stuff, you have acts that have got music coming out all the time with music on the radio. And, you know, some acts this summer, this was supposed to be their summer where they would like completely capitalize on all of their success. And, you know, they haven't had a chance to quite get there. And then they have to come back next summer when possibly they don't have the same releases. And then we've obviously got all the new talent that's coming through, which, you know, there may not be spaces for them on some festivals, and yet they possibly are having a really good year. So it's going to be a challenge for sure. I don't really know what the solution is because everybody, pretty much in the most part, we've moved everything into 2021. I'm hoping that we will be able to place newer acts, hotter acts into festivals based on where they're at, if that's possible. But certainly the lineups that I've moved, they're done. And so that does concern me. And I have been thinking about that a lot over the last few days.
Jules, over to you on that. Is there a case of managing expectations of how much can be fitted into next year?
Yeah, definitely. I think managing expectations, and I mean, it's, you know, a clear understanding from artists and managers that it's going to be really saturated in 21 on the festival market and festival front. I'd go back to the idea of, you know, working together, being understanding of some of the challenges and some of the constraints that promoters have faced, and making sure that we're having, you know, positive dialogue with everyone. So it's like, okay, so what do we, you know, so we need to look at, you know, new deals, revised terms for this festival, you know, next year. What are the kind of you know, I guess it's as we mentioned offline, we're having different conversations on, you know, different festivals about, you know, different artists at all levels. I think the main thing is that we are having this dialogue and that we're entertaining, you know, promoter positions, trying to understand, you know, where they're coming from, whether it's, you know, whether it's a sponsorship issue, whether it's a, you know, risk management, whether it's a lack of visibility. We just don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what capacity we're going to operate at. And I think the challenge of making, you know, the right deals with promoters is based on not knowing. So if you don't really know, how can you really be making, you know, the right deal? And therefore you have to find a middle ground, a meeting point, and it's all about dialogue and conversation. So it's a roundabout way of saying that if we want to have support on our newer acts, and, you know, our newer acts, I guess, will have to be, you know, in a place where they can be, you know, there's enough happening to be considered by festivals, but we have to be willing to work with festivals and promoters in the first place if we want to have a conversation about you know, acts for the few spots that they'll have left once they've rescheduled everyone. So definitely challenges there, and I think we have to manage artists' expectations, and they have to plan their summer of 21, potentially, you know, delay campaigns if they can afford to do so, in full knowledge that it's going to be extremely difficult to get on festivals. For the ones that are not the obvious acts of the moment come, you know, January 21.
Thank you. That's a question from Stefan Lemkel, who's asking about whether as agents will you support independent companies more in the future. Tom, I'm going to hand that one over to you.
I just like Stefan throwing a little hand grenade into a nice jovial panel.
Good luck, Tom.
Sweat. And Greg, thank you for picking on me to answer that one. Stefan, as you know, I have always supported independent companies, and I always will. I think that, as I said, we want everyone to win. I don't know if people know, myself and Alex own some venues in London, and so firsthand we are in the middle of the same struggles that we see elsewhere. And do I think agents understand that? No, not always. No, I think running, especially a small venue, is an incredibly difficult task. You really are doing it for love almost all of the time, and you get very little thanks for it. I think investing in venues has really taught me a lot and made me a better agent. And as I said, Stefan, I think that we will continue to support everyone because we need everyone to win. There was another comment. There's a few hand grenades going in this right-hand column here, which I'm quite enjoying. And I think that look, maybe you look at this and you see how the independents struggle, and therefore the market is swept up by the globals, by Live Nation and AEG. But Live Nation and AEG have invested enormous sums of money into 2020 and are going to have to remodel and are going to have to change philosophies, and are openly saying that. And we're having talks to help them with that. So it's not like everything's great for them and bad for everyone else. And I think, if you take that we're all in this together thing, well, and everyone cuts out the idiots doing bad business, then we'll all come out of it all right. And if that means I have to cross a few shows more that I would have argued in 6 months ago, that's fine. And as I said, if we can get this all back healthy again, we can all argue over crossing shows. But at the moment, we just want the shows to happen, sell out, and everyone win. I have enormous respect for Emma Banks, and I think whenever I talk to her about this sort of stuff, she always comes back to a point that is incredibly important as an agent, and that is that we like to think that we're really important, powerful people, sort of, but it's down to managers and artists too. And so when you talk, Stefan, about, I'm just dealing with your hand grenade, the buying whole genres, I think sometimes you have to look past agents and look at managers and artists and look at how they want to do their business. And as agents, sometimes you have to facilitate that. But I think what COVID will have done is certainly put a pause, if not a stop, to some of those silly deals. And we can go back to, real music lovers doing really good music business and everyone winning.
Good stuff. Thanks, Tom. Apologies for picking you for that one. We've got a question from Nadia Sheikh, who wants to ask it so much she's typed it in on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. So how does the new situation affect new and emerging artists building a team and looking for a booking agent? With the current situation, are agents still looking for new talent, or has that been put on hold? Angus, I'm going to throw this one in your direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I'm sort of very conscious of is that in this strange time where perhaps we have got a bit more time to reflect and for all of us to think about what values matter, everyone's doing that. So I'm very optimistic about the quality of new albums or tracks and records that people are going to be putting out over the next year, because we've all had more time to consider what we're doing. There's certainly more sort of things for people to talk about than there has been for some time, and I'm a big believer that music will play a part in the sort of process of kind of healing and everyone getting going again, and sort of so I think we're going to go into a period where there'll be hopefully a huge amount of quality kind of new music. So yeah, super interested to talk to people about new music, and I think the UK is right now producing some of the most interesting, most contemporary, fresh sounding music that anywhere in the world in certain genres, and I think that's something that is certainly keeping me excited and kind of we can all hopefully look forward to. So yeah.
Thanks. Maria, are you signing new artists at the moment?
Yeah, I've signed a couple of acts on lockdown. I'm seeing some really great music. A lot of the artists that I work with or know peripherally are in the studio working away with no pressures of touring on them. I really think that we're going to see some great music coming out in the next six to 12 months, from this period of pause where people are just at home or in their studios making music or writing. So it's definitely not stopping me signing new music. What's going on? I'm very looking forward to the future and breaking new artists. It's going to be great.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. There's a question here from Mallory, who asks, how will you tackle the issues with big artists playing smaller venues because they'll be the only ones running and taking all the space that's been nurtured by smaller artists and promoters? Do you think we're going to see that, a kind of concertina effect of too many artists trying to go into small venues? Jules, maybe that's one for you.
Happy to tackle that one. I think that my general gut is that the idea of playing within heavily socially distanced environments indoors isn't really going to be a reality. It may be a reality that, inevitable reality that we're facing in the autumn, but I don't think that I can't really see it happening. I don't see how you police social distance, even at 50% capacity, even at 30% capacity within a venue. I don't see how venues are really able to operate, how to cover costs within those environments. And so I think this idea that we're going to see widespread major acts doing underplays in heavily social distanced, small venues, I can't see that as a reality. Practically, I just don't see how it works, both from a logistical and a health point of view within venues, and also I just don't see how venues can operate, within those parameters. I don't see how they can. I think that some of the issues we've seen in, I was talking to French promoters about the issues they're facing there, is that the moment that a venue reopens at a limited capacity, they unfortunately lose the support from the government that they get for their staff having to go back to work. So the combination of loss of support, that really needed support from government, with the loss of income on as a result of reduced capacities, I just don't see how these things can really work.
Okay, thanks very much. We've got just a few minutes left of the discussion. I just wanted to sort of really end by asking each of you guys where you think the opportunities might lie beyond COVID. So not necessarily talking about the sort of makeup and relationships of the business, but are there going to be new ways of doing business? Are there going to be new kind of new tech or new kind of platforms that we can use the live industry that are potentially quite interesting? Maria, I'm going to come to you first on that. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I feel like we've covered, for me, certainly there's a new way of working. Hopefully there's a lot more collaboration going on. Yeah. I certainly feel like the additional streaming sort of scenario on certain festivals, and the artists actually being paid for that differently rather than in the fee, but as like a separate thing based on how many people are viewing them, could be a very interesting way of moving forward. I think I've covered it.
Okay. Anybody else on that?
I'm not going to get in a taxi for an hour and go from Old Street to High Street Ken when they can just flick a switch and me be on a screen. I think that we've all learned that it's really tiring, but it's fine to do business like this, and those trips abroad and those whatever. I don't know how much people know, but before this all erupted, I'd been working really, really hard with some other people on some climate change stuff and some carbon offsetting. And when this all happened, my heart sank a bit, because I thought, how on earth am I ever going to get that back on the agenda with live music? And actually, I think it's so important that it does the job itself. And a byproduct is that we're all going to spend an awful lot less time on planes, and that there's going to be wholesale change in things like that. There's going to be a domesticity in every market and a nurturing of local talent that we might not have seen before. We know pretty much that's how markets going to reopen. Look, we're on live music 3.0 or something, aren't we, when this all comes back? And it's a relative blank sheet of paper.
Fantastic. Angus, over to you on that, and any sort of final sort of takeaway points from today's discussion.
I'm going to be on the first plane as soon as I can go anywhere, Tom. So sorry to but no, I hear what you're saying. I hope we can all think about that too. I mean, I think that it would be certainly something if we can all have in mind a little bit more, consideration for how we travel, how we can, act responsibly, and I'm optimistic that should actually be higher up the agenda than it would have been previously, Tom, in a way. So here's hoping.
Jules, final word from you.
I think that as we said, the period will have brought a lot of reflecting and a lot of thinking about not just work lives, but lives in general. Work-life balance, being at home, spending more time with family. A lot of an incredible amount of change to come, as we felt and we've seen in the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's just been an absolutely unbelievable year, incredible year, charged with, the promise of change, a more, collaborative spirit within the business, within the industry, a real potential for change on, in the diversity and inclusion, department. I mean, these are all just incredible things. Like I don't think anyone could have even dreamed of these things, really happening. So if we can turn a positive out of all the challenges and the anguish, I think we'll have done well from this year.
Great point, Maria. Final word from you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always we can all be better, can't we? Always. And Tom quite rightly mentioned all the eco issues, and I hope that in the move forward, in order to try and rebuild our business, we don't drop a lot of those things that we've seen happening in China in their wish to sort of rebuild their economy. They've just dropped all their eco credentials in order to sort of like get some money in the bank again. And I think all of the values that we held before, we just need to keep hold them close, if not closer, and move forward in a positive way, but not forgetting all the things that we were actually fighting for before this pandemic.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. So, I mean, we're kind of out of time. So I just wanted to say a couple of quick things. I mean, thanks to everyone for watching today. If you do want to get notifications about future sessions we're running, please click the like button on Facebook or the subscribe button on YouTube. Next week, we're having a conversation in association with the Music Managers Forum. So there's a lineup of prominent artist managers. So please bookmark that for 4 p.m. next Thursday. And on the 25th of June, there's a conversation continuing a little bit about what we talked about earlier about diversity in the live music industry. So finally, just to say a huge thank you to all of our guests today. Thanks very much for taking the time. Thanks everyone for watching as well. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg.